Hello and welcome to this week's webisode with Fishwick and Associates. This week, we're actually talking about the changes in the law and how they affect jury trials. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our founder and owner, Mr. John Fishwick. John?
It's Zach, our host with the most. He's not virtual. He's there in the office. See that American flag? I see Judge Daniel's in the house, and Judge Daniel not in virtual mode this week. Unusual. We actually have him in the office, Zach, as you know. So there has been a change in the law. Before I get to that, we're coming to the end of the month, so we'll be making another contribution to Southwest Food Bank. Every time we go to court, we keep tabs on it. We've had a brisk October. In fact, Judge Daniel and I are in court tomorrow, so that'll count as a visit to court, and that'll be part of our contributions every time we go to court. So we're at the wire in October. We're headed into the courtrooms in Virginia. Tomorrow we're in state court. So there has been, Zach, an interesting change in the law here. Dealing with jury trials with criminal cases. And, you know, we represent folks who are charged with very serious matters. You've been on the prosecution side of those, Zach. You're now on the defense side. I've been a little bit of time on the prosecution. I've got a lot of experience on the defense side. And so one of the things in Virginia is juries, if it's a state case, the jury up until, you know, this new change is always decides if somebody's found guilty what their sentence is. And I think the feeling has been, particularly in counties and rural counties, that jurors are pretty tough in sentencing. So if it's a drug case or a property case, a case that, say, in Norfolk or in Roanoke or in Richmond, a jury might be more lenient on. In Giles, in Bath and Rockbridge, the juries might be a little more tough on folks. And so now starting, and Judge Daniel will talk about this, but starting in July of this year, the defendant can decide, the jury will decide guilt or innocence, but the judge will decide the sentence in state court. And so that's a big change. I think that's going to really affect the strategy of cases. I think ultimately, when you factor in, you're going to see lighter sentences. I mean, judges will sentence under what's called the sentencing guidelines, which are factors that they look at, but it's more dispassionate. I think prosecutors know that it's a great leverage to have the community sentence. And so I think you're going to see sentences slowly average going down throughout the Commonwealth, and there'll be more uniformity. Judges will be pretty consistent because they'll be evaluated by the General Assembly. And one of the things they'll look at is, have they been within the sentencing guidelines? So it's a big change. I think it's going to affect strategy. We were in front of another judge recently, Carol and I, and he, as an aside, seemed to be saying, well, I think there'll be a lot more jury trials now because defendants will take their chance on guilt or innocence, knowing that a judge can ultimately sentence them. So I think it's interesting. I think it's part of, Zach and those Democrats down there have changed some of these. I think this change is for the better. I think you're going to see more common sense sentencing, more consistency in sentencing, and more fairness to individual. I think certain localities on certain cases are known to be really, really tough on folks. And why should there be a difference? Why should you just happen to, be convicted of an offense in a particular locality and get a different result than somebody living on a different side of the state? So absolutely. I think I'm a rule of law guy, but I think this will actually provide more consistency. So Judge Daniel, you've been up there in Augusta County before you came to us working for a judge up there. You've seen juries sentenced in a rural jurisdiction, but tell our viewers some of the details of this thing. When does it start and how does it work on the legal side of this?
Right. So the old way it worked was that if you elected for a jury trial as your constitutional right, you had to elect to have the jury sentence you. So it was, a package deal, kit and caboodle, as the kids might say. And so now the rule is,
that's a throwback term.
Well, I like to keep things current.
Okay.
So now the rule is that by default, if you elect for a jury trial, the judge will sentence you. Now you can still elect to have the jury sentence you, but in order to do so, you have to submit a written request in writing at least 30 days prior to trial. So there may be some situations where it's more advantageous for the defendant to want the jury to sentence him rather than the judge. But the kind of the historical understanding was that juries don't really have access to sentencing guidelines. They're not really told anything when it comes to sentencing. They have, the evidence that's before them. Whereas judges, they'll get a big report, detailing the defendant's background and, adding up the factors and kind of creating a numerical system where similar defendants are sentenced similarly. And that's, that uniformity is really valuable to the legal system. And it's valuable to defendants too, because it gives that predictability. But So the law goes into effect on July 1st, 2021, assuming Governor Northam signs it, which I don't think he's done yet, but I think the wisdom is that he will be signing it into law. So that'll be a big change coming in July.
Yeah, and now Zach, you've had a number of important positions in your career. You've been in the Marines. You've worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office on investigations there, but you've also worked as a law enforcement officer in a couple of these jurisdictions that I think are known to be kind of tough sentencing places. So
Yes.
based on your experience, I mean, don't you think this will be a game changer in some of these more rural jurisdictions, or more, I guess, law and order, or more stiff sentences for folks?
Absolutely, I do, because what you said is right. I mean, just one jurisdiction, neighboring jurisdictions, you can end up in jail for a couple months versus jail for a weekend, or no jail and jail for a couple of weeks, just by going, less than 5 miles. So I think you're right. I mean, the law should be, carte blanche, the same all the way across, and not just regulated on the demographics. So.
Right. Well, we've covered a lot of things, as Daniel would say. I guess what was that word, Daniel?
Kit and caboodle.
Kit and caboodle. That's before my time.
That's some crazy shenanigans and ballyhoo right there.
Well, that phrase is the bee's knees. So
Yeah.
The cat's meow.
I don't think that's Latin though, Zach. But Zach, with that, would you sign us off for this week? Let everybody know we're still out here.
Absolutely. We hope you guys enjoy this. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, or just want to talk to one of us, feel free to call us. We do appreciate, the questions that you do send in. And stay tuned, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week.